In today's lesson, we're going to take a look at different ways that we can stabilize a shaky footage. So let's get started. I've got 3 different situations, and for each of these videos, we're going to use a different technique. So one will be easy, the second will be moderate, and the final will be a little complicated. So let's begin with the easiest one, which is basically a video that you have shot handheld. Just take a look at this video. I'm going to drag it into my timeline, play it back, and as you can see, the camera is shaking because the video was shot handheld. So this is a pretty common situation and it could be better or worse. But with a simple warp stabilizer, we can stabilize the footage. So it's as easy as grabbing the warp stabilizer from the effects panel, dragging it onto your shaky clip, having it analyze, which will take some time depending on how long your clip is, and then you're basically ready to go. It's going to stabilize now. And when I play it back normally, you can see that it's not as shaky. Now, if the result isn't what you're looking for, you can take a look at some options in the effect controls. Underneath warp stabilizer in the effect controls, you also have some options to adjust the stabilization. For the result, it should be on smooth motion. Basically, it means that Premiere Pro is going to use the necessary methods to give your video a smooth motion. So it's going to create motion itself to make it look like this video is stabilized. Now, the type of motion depends on the method. We have subspace warp, perspective, position, scale, and rotation, or just position. For me, it's on the last option. Basically, it's kind of like warping the footage. Sure, you can see it's kind of like wobbly. And that's the method that Premiere Pro is using to stabilize my footage. But I can ask it to just maybe use perspective. It's going to stabilize again. And it's just going to use these sharp turns to make my video look more smooth. Now, the method entirely depends on the type of footage that you have. So based on the result that you see here, you would want to choose a different method. With position, scale, and rotation, Premiere Pro will transform your clip, zoom in, move it to the left and right to stabilize your footage. So when I play this back, you can see that it's kind of shaky because the method is not suitable. So always preview your video after choosing a method to make sure that it's suitable for your clip. And finally, we have just position. This is not the best option for my example. You can see that it's almost more shaky now due to the wrong method. So subspace warp is the best method for my clip. So when I play this back with the subspace warp, it's going to give me the best result. And if I were to stabilize my footage, the subspace warp method is the best for me. Now let's take a look at another example which uses the same technique, but the method may differ. Make a new sequence. And this is the video that we have. So you can see there isn't that much shake, but I can kind of have the video be stabilized based off my subject. So grab the warp stabilizer effect on your video and it's going to analyze your clip. We got rid of that slight shake in the background, and in the effect controls we can try different results. So if I put it on no motion, you can see that it kind of zoomed in. You can also notice the warp from the method. If I bring this forward, you can see that the background is kind of expanding, and that's because of our method. But if I change this to position, scale, and rotation, we're going to get a different result. Now it's kind of bouncing up and down. Try a perspective method, and I will get something that's a little bit more shaky. If If I choose position, I will get a really stiff movement for my video. Sometimes you're trying to get rid of shake within a video. Other times you want to add shake to a clip. So maybe you're trying to make a tripod shot look more like a handheld shot. So this is where the different methods will come in handy. So this was the technique in Premiere Pro. Now let's take a look at our second technique with a different video. So this is my second video. I'm going to view it here. We have someone dribbling on a ball, and I just want to make the focus of the video on the ball. So basically have the video move with the bouncing that is happening. And we can do that by using After Effects. Make a sequence from your clip. We can delete the previous sequence. We don't really need them. So duplicate your clip and place it right above. This way we can see a before and after once we're finished. Right click on the top layer and replace with After Effects Composition. Move into the tracker panel, which you can bring in right here, and choose the Stabilize Motion option. It's going to give you a little box. Before positioning the box over the ball, just go through and find a part where the ball is in focus, but it's away from the person's hand. So right on this frame, I'm going to grab the box, set the point on maybe one of these lines, then position the box so that it's perfectly fit for the ball. There we go. Now I'm just going to make sure that position is the only option that's turned on. Go to Options and enable the Stop Tracking in the drop-down menu. The reason we're doing this is because sometimes After Effects loses sight of that point and will start creating random keyframes. In order to avoid those random keyframes, we're going to ask the program to stop tracking when it's confused. So by default, it should be on Adapt feature, but just put it on Stop Tracking so we can avoid fixing those keyframes as much as possible. Hit OK once you're finished, and then we're going to track forward, jump back to this point, which you can just put a marker on by grabbing this guy here, and then track backwards. So hit Analyze Forward, and just wait for After Effects to stop tracking on its own. If it does not stop, then just let it go. That just means that After Effects does have that point in sight at all times. So far it hasn't stopped and the box is nicely fit on top of the basketball. I'm gonna let it do its thing and then I'll be right back so we can continue. So it stopped tracking here. Just grab the box and reposition it on another point so that it's not confused. Then just analyze forward. At around this point, it's going to stop tracking and we don't really need the rest of the video, so it's fine. Then just go to your marker, click on it once, and we're going to track backwards from this point. So if your box is nicely fit for your object, you should have no problems, and the chances of it stopping will be low. There we go. I have all of these tracking points. And now we're going to send the tracking data onto the video itself. So your target should be your video, since you wouldn't have any other layers. Then just hit apply to push this data onto the video. When I play this back, you can see that it's stabilized, but we're getting these black bars because After Effects is moving the video itself. So it's an easy fix when it comes to this. Just hit S on your video, zoom right in, and then use position to just put it where it needs to be. Comb through your footage and make sure that you do not reveal the edges. So zoom in as much as you need to. You can also zoom out at like 25 and make sure that the video frame does not get revealed. When you're done, hit Command S and go back to Premiere Pro. So now we have this interesting stabilization method for this ball. And once you have it in Premiere Pro, you can just maybe do some color grading, put some music, put the rest of your clips in, and you're ready to go. Now let's take a look at our third technique, which involves 3D cameras. So the third video is, I believe, this one. Basically in this video, let me make a sequence real quick. We just have someone walking, but it's been shot handheld and there's a lot of shake. So instead of using Premiere Pro's warp stabilizer or the technique that we just saw, I will be using a 3D camera technique. So duplicate your clip for reference, right click on the top one, replace with After Effects composition. Zoom right in here. And now the process is the same. We're just going to use track motion instead of stabilize motion. Click on this once. You're going to get the same track points. And this time I will be using something that has a lot of contrast on our subject. So let's start at the beginning. Grab the track points, make them bigger. Zoom right in, and maybe I can use one of his rings or his eye to just track everything. I think I will use one of his rings. Put the small box right around those rings and the big box around the ear. So you're telling After Effects to look for the ring within this area. Now we're just going to create a new null object. Go back to the video and choose the transform option, then track forward. So it stopped tracking because of our option. And if I go back, I can see the reason why. It kind of loses sight of the earring early on. So we can actually reset this and try something else. Maybe his eye will give us a better result. Put that right there. Use the bigger box to just make the selection more suitable. And zoom right in. Do this. Let's attempt to analyze this. You can see now it doesn't stop as much. And we only stop because, well, he closes his eye. So let's make a marker right here. Find an area where he opens his eye, which should be here. Put another marker. Then grab this box, pull it back on his eye. Analyze forward. Again, it stops. Make a marker. Go to where he opens his eye. Push this guy back. Then analyze forward. So keep doing this until you have all of the frames analyzed. I'm going to stop my video right here, but if something does cover the eye or if the subject just closes their eye, you can stop tracking, put a marker, continue tracking from the frame where everything is good, and then we can just come back to these later. Just going to hit N right here and trim comp. Go back to my markers so I can show you what you're supposed to do during these times. So go back to marker 1 where we had the first pause. And what you want to do is to just position these keyframes on the correct eye area. So go to the next frame. It's on the eyebrow. Just pull it down. And then right here, we're going to use the Analyze one frame forward option instead of the normal button so that we can check each of the frames between marker 1 and marker 2. It's looking good so far. Just keep going. And once we're at marker 2, we don't really need to do this. Let's go to marker 3. Actually, it needs to be here. Let's pull this guy back. Use marker 3, analyze forward 1 frame, make sure that it's set on the eyeball and not anywhere else. Looking good so far, and I think the rest is good to go. So once I have this, I just want to check my keyframes real quick. You can go in frame by frame. Sometimes there may be a keyframe that's not where it's supposed to be. So I'm just going to analyze, and if needed, just move these keyframes back on the eye. You can also move in frame by frame by holding down Command and pressing the right arrow key. That's Control right arrow key on Windows. So keep moving frame by frame, and if at any point the keyframe is not suitable, then just move it around. I'm going to modify the keyframes and then I'll be right back. So I modified my keyframes and now everything is looking good. Now we're going to edit target, set it onto our null object, and hit apply. So now the null is just stuck to that eyeball at all times. But now we want the video to move with the null keyframes, because right now it's looking pretty normal. So we're just going to create a new camera layer, hit OK. And now we need to connect the camera to the null one. When I play this back, you can see that the video is kind of moving by itself. And we need to just transform this so that it stays within the composition frame. So just grab the original clip, use position, and scale to 1, make it really big, and 2, avoid getting black bars at the edge of our frame. So there we go. Now we're not getting those black bars and everything is within the composition frame. Once you're done, you can hit Command S on your keyboard, go back to Premiere Pro and do the rest of your editing. But this was our final technique for stabilizing video. Now that you know all 3 of these techniques, you can choose the right one for your video and have a less shaky footage. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson, and I will see you in the next one.